welcome. My name's Charlie Simons. I'm your host every week on this new show. We're just getting started. And I want you to meet, first of all, right out of the gate, the person who basically, this is his concept. He started this whole thing, and it's a broken work comp. There's so many stories, so many of us, and I'm one of them who's had problems with workman's compensation. We're legitimately injured. We're legitimately hurt, whether it's something we did wrong or whether it was something that was wrong with where we were working that caused the injury. The bottom line is it happened at the workplace. And that means we're covered by insurance that's provided basically by the government. And anybody who's had any kind of government dealings, you know, it's so easy to say, this is what we're doing for you because we care. But then when it comes time to actually get it done, they're nowhere around, son. We're just getting started with hearing all of these stories of what people have been going through trying to get what they were promised. And in the meantime, some of them, like we found out with Alvin last week, losing everything because of it, because of injuries sustained that they cannot even go back to work. That's disheartening. That, especially when it comes to veterans, that can't keep happening. So the least we can do is at least shine the light on it, because I don't hear anyone else in the media talking about it. I don't see anything else on here promoting this topic, broken workers' comp. So I want you to meet the man who started all of this. He's got his own story about the battle he's been having, and his name is Kirk Tushan. Hello, Kirk.
Hey, Charlie.
Did I say that correctly? Tushan.
Yes, sir.
Tushan. That's a cool name.
It's a curveball.
Yeah, I like it. It's very cool. It's fun saying French words like buttery flake croissant. Tushan. So tell your story, please. First of all, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
Well, I grew up in California, Sacramento area, initially. I've lived in California all my life, served California both in the military and Department of Corrections.
You got stories.
I've got some stories.
And as a matter of fact, our guest last week, also Department of Corrections. So prison guard. Very hard job, very thankless job. And you better have a tight bond with those that you're working with, because those that you're guarding want nothing but bad things for you, regardless of what they say. For the most part, that's just true. You are their enemy because you're keeping them there. They never take responsibility for their own actions. How many years were you a correctional officer?
I have a total of 15 years in the department.
Did you ever once hear anyone in the joint say, yep, I got what I deserved. I was pretty crummy?
You know, there are a few. There are some that, there's stories. People just say, hey, I messed up. I'm dealing with it. But then, of course, there are the others that it's the system that put them there, and it's
right.
They've got an excuse for everybody. But there's
a
lot of people that do that.
No, I don't belong in here. No, I'm innocent. You just don't understand. You're here. Let me get you in touch, and let me give you all this stuff, and you can help me get out.
Yeah.
How many times do you hear that?
Every day. But
you're a good guy. I can trust you. Sure.
That's the one thing is
a lot of lying and deceiving.
Trust.
But then you got the physical assault too, and that's what happened to our guest last week. An actual physical assault that broke bones and incapacitated for months, and still suffering from the lingering effects. What happened to you? What's your story?
Well, mine was more just degenerative. It's just from working 16-hour shifts, wearing heavy equipment, running 3-4 times a shift, and then what basically happens is your body starts to wear down. Your especially when you're pushing yourself all the time. And then
How
when
much
it
is
comes,
that? They're lighter now, but when you were in, how much did just the bulletproof vest that you have to wear all the time? How much did that
well,
cost?
with the
Or how much
vest
did
and the
that weigh,
utility
rather?
belt, it's around 10 pounds of additional weight.
Yeah,
And it's on your shoulders, it's on your hips. So,
right.
and then additionally, you're constantly turning and twisting. Whenever you put somebody in restraints, you've got to turn your body to uh, make sure that they can't reverse on you. Then running, a lot of times we're running across yards that have holes in them. So you're stepping in holes as you're trying to respond, depending on the situation, because you never know where you're going to be responding to. And then, just having to use force. Sometimes people don't want to comply. And if they're not compliant, then you have to use some type of force to make them compliant. So I mean, we go in there with the attitude of, okay, we just want to go home at the end of the day. We want to make sure everybody's safe, and that's both custody and people in custody. So it's we go in with a neutral feeling. It's not necessarily us against them. It's just, how do we go in, do our job, and go home at the end of the day?
And not take things that you see in here with you to your family.
Yes. So you have to have thick skin. You have to not take things personal. You learn personalities. It's like a lot of times you go to work and you already know what's going to happen before you get there. I mean, if you get there and then there's just really quiet, low demeanor, something's big going to happen on the yard. So it's a more of a mental game than it is a physical game, but it's your body that really takes the punishment from what you're doing. I mean, 16
Mentally too.
hours.
Mentally too. That's part of your body. That brain is taking a punishing too.
Absolutely.
The lying, the deceit, the challenging, the. Well, I don't want that job. I respect anybody who does it. I'm always like, wow. Never mind.
Well,
I'm glad you're there doing that.
the
I'm
funny
glad
thing is
I'm
you
not
ask.
that guy. I don't think that I'm that guy that I could do that and
Oh,
put.
not everybody's cut out for it, but you
No,
ask anybody that's working inside, and they're not doing it for any other reason usually than the money.
right,
If it wasn't for the money, you couldn't subject people to the working conditions that you're normally under.
right.
We do have counselors and other people that are trained for psychology, that go in there because they say, as a psychologist, the only real cases of mental instability you'll find is inside the prisons. So I worked down at California Men's Colony also, which had a mental facility. There's three set up in California, primarily for people that are psychiatric patients. So, but for us custody, we're there to protect both the staff and the inmates. So,
So I get it. I get it. You're literally part of those who are transporting and getting them to and from and protecting the people who are meeting the psychiatrists and psychologists. Dang. So actually, in many ways, that made you probably even more susceptible than just
no,
watching
you
a
always
yard
have your guard
or
up.
just watching a cell block, right?
Yeah, you always have your guard up, but you watch interactions more closely. So it's like and you don't stop when you leave either. You see people and how they react to each other. Even on the street, you can start telling if something is starting to happen, or how to diffuse a situation, because inside the institution we have to diffuse situations on a nonstop basis. Even between people in custody, you have to have a neutral footing, and it's so you don't think about the people you're watching in a way of, oh, I've seen this jacket and what he's done. You look at it as a neutral individual that can go either way.
And even just a couple of decades ago, you mouthed off to a correctional officer or you challenged them in any way, they could physically teach you a lesson,
Yeah.
basically.
Old
Um,
school. That's
yeah,
before my time, and I
and you
came in
can, yeah, right.
2002.
That was my point. You can't do that now, can you?
Mm-mm. No,
Even if it's much deserved, you can't do that.
no.
And uh, that's just made you all in the correctional institutions, I believe, sitting ducks because you can't even display the strength and the training that you have
No.
to curb their terrible behavior.
Well, you were just talking about the bond that
Weird.
we have as officers, but um, it's more of I wouldn't say a bond as it is trying to watch out for each other's back because it's constantly put on to us about not having a bond. From our superiors, they're always, they don't want the green wall, and I've came in 2002, and I've never seen a green wall in the institutions I've worked in. I've never seen that situation. I've heard stories of future generations that may have had that, but a lot of times it is people putting us against each other. So it's
Yes.
like I was in a
Big.
situation where I was helping out a supervisor, and I was punished for helping another person that was part of the incident write a report. And
Really?
it wasn't because I was trying to change the story or anything, but they were putting us against each other, which
Yeah.
didn't make sense to me.
That makes zero sense to me too. That your higher ups would be wanting you to be lone wolves, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the support? You guys all need each other, men and women.
Well, that's
You
why
know?
I'm starting this, because there isn't support. It's funny because when you get injured at work and you're taken off work, there's automatically this anger against the person that was injured because, now everybody else is going to have to pick up the load for that person.
Mm,
And then you hear all these stories of, oh, they're faking or this is going on
yeah.
and it's, so automatically when that person is taken off work, there's an anger towards them. And sadly, you don't get support, unless you're close friends with a few people, that you may associate with outside of work. But a person leaves work, you never hear anything about them or what they're going through. And that's also another advantage for the system because, say, I'm going through a situation, I can't help another person that's going through the same situation because we're isolated now. So there's a lot of things that I guess superiors.
Is this a woke thing, do you think? Is this, I mean, honestly, just off topic a little bit, but I just makes no sense to me what the objective would be from not letting you all work together cohesively as a team, almost a military unit. What would be negative about that in their minds?
Well, there's a high level of political correctness. And you figure once you get into administration, you become like the politicians, you become political. Then it's more of a, like with the courts. A lot of times the courts will make decisions that we have to abide by that is actually harmful to the population. But because one person said, well, in my situation, this happened. But it may have been that one person's situation, but it may not be the situation for the population. It's like usually when you go out to the yards, it isn't the staff that's segregating, most of the population. It's the population segregating themselves.
Oh, hardcore. Yeah. That group will not mess with that group, and they all lift and separate, basically.
Absolutely. And then they tell
And
us to
war
try
with
to
each other.
put
Yeah.
them together, and it doesn't work.
No.
Another thing is with the system and Workman's Comp, the system is set up, say you get injured and it's a serious injury. You go off work, the doctors take you off work for, say, a year. Okay, well, during that year, you do get temporary disability. Well, say if Workman's Comp isn't treating the injury, but is treating the symptoms, and you have to stay off longer. Well, that second year, your pay reduces dramatically. Still not getting treatment for the injury. You're still getting treatment for the symptoms, drugs, painkillers. That third year, you don't get any income, nothing. So you've gone from a good paying job to roughly 2/3 of your pay to a quarter of that. And then they have up to 5 years to settle your case. So the third, fourth, and fifth year, you have no income. You can't work, and you're taking off work. With law enforcement or a peace officer, there are certain requirements of the job that are mandatory. If you can't fulfill those requirements, you can't work. Like for me, I have degenerative disc in my neck and back. So I could seriously injure myself by twisting wrong, by turning wrong, having to use force.
Like paralyzed kind of stuff, possibly.
Well,
let's talk about
more damage.
What
Absolutely.
happened? Let's talk about your injury. What happened?
Well, it's just degeneration of my neck and back.
So it was just after 15 years of service, too many things, too many scuffles, too many problems, started this degenerative disc disorder then.
Yeah, I started going to work. I would put a TENS unit on my duty belt with a hole through my shirt and have the electric pads under my vest, so I could turn that on during work. I was taking medication that I had to submit my medication list to the institution, and the doctor's notices, so I could take some pain medicine while I was working. So I tried to continue to work as long as I could. It was when so I was seeing a pain specialist on a monthly basis and to manage the medication and the treatment while working, while doing 16-hour shifts. And the pain was getting so great, I was starting to miss work. I was using my family medical leave, the FMLA. And so towards the end, I was only getting partial paychecks because I was taking so much time off from work due to pain. Then when the pain specialist did another MRI of my neck, he says, "We're taking you off work." So at that point, I had already been dragging this out for years, trying to work through the pain. I had to sign a waiver to waive the restrictions. And at that point, that was it for my career. They took me off work and I could no longer return.
Because of an MRI, which definitely you can't lie in an MRI. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. And the worst part is I don't know if it's reversible. I hope things are better for you now.
Well, it's not reversible. The degeneration is there. I've seen 42 doctors and specialists, and all of them are saying the same thing. They're saying we need to fuse your neck, and they wanted to do a stimulator inside my spine. Basically a TENS unit that's internal.
Right.
Workman's Comp denies it. So, they tried to get a TENS unit, a new TENS unit approved. They deny that. They tried to get lidocaine for ointment for my neck and back to help with the nerve pain. They deny that. So
what?
Currently,
why?
Yeah, and
it's, here's the worst part. I ask why, but I know the answer. They don't have to give you a reason.
No,
that's the worst part. A doctor has prescribed this. What makes you think, workers' comp bureaucrat, that you have the right to say, yeah, no? Now, you don't get that. I don't care what the doctor says. Yeah, no.
Well, that's the thing that's crazy. Okay, so here it is I've got these 42 doctors and specialists, and they've got the MRI results, and they've got all the other tests. And so they send it to Workman's Comp, and they send it back denied. So then we appeal it. They send it out to a third party, which is a lower level doctor than the surgeon that's requesting the information, right? So that doctor sends back denied, not enough information. So they put in another appeal, and it comes back same reason. So you've got a doctor at a lower level than a surgeon, and the surgeon is requesting the fusion of the vertebrae, and that doctor sending back, oh, denied. He's never seen me. He's never examined me. He's read all the results from the other doctors, and what they do is they say it's not medically necessary, which means I can live the rest of my life in this condition.
Dang.
And since I'm not returning to work, they have no need to do the surgery because it's a quality of life issue. So that's an amazing thing. So I have numbness in my hands. My neck is constantly burning. I've got fire up and down my back, and it's not medically necessary to do, and I can continue to live in this condition. So my attorney basically said, hey, you know, what we'll do is, since I have future medical the rest of my life, which means I have to go see a doctor every month for the rest of my life, every treatment that's being requested by the doctors is being denied. My attorney said, hey, just sell out the future medical. You know, we're asking for a low amount, just enough for me to go to my own doctor to get surgery to fuse my vertebrae and to help me with condition of life, you know. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. You know, there's no reason for us to do it because it's cheaper to drag it out for the rest of your life, because shoot, they can pay for a doctor every month and save a lot of money. You know, I don't get medication, so they've denied the medications. They've denied epidural injections. They denied the injections they were doing into my knots, because I've got huge knots in my neck and back. I've paid for my own chiropractic. I've paid for my own massage therapy. But it's just cheaper for them to continue. And I've heard other people say that the same has been done for them.
Here, take this Tylenol. No, it's better. It's prescription strength. Oh, you mean like as if I just took 3 Tylenol? It is absolutely insane and maddening.
The only medication they were approving was gabapentin. And gabapentin, I had been on it so many years, my muscles were I was getting severe cramps. I couldn't sleep at night because my legs were cramping up so bad, and I was getting cramps in the rest of my body. You're supposed to taper off it. I stopped it because I couldn't get it anymore. You know, that's the thing that's insane.
Did you find your balance being off too? Being unsteady when you stand up or when you're walking, your balance was really off when you were taking that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, me too. I got put on that when I was diagnosed as having an idiopathic neuropathy, which means we can't figure out why you have this nerve damage, but oh well, here, we're going to give you this stuff. Well, how effective is it and how much should I take? We don't know. Start with this and then we'll go to that level. If that doesn't work, keep taking more. It got worse and worse until finally I did the same thing you did, Kirk. Done. I don't know what this is, but it's not doing what I think you intended to do. I'm going to explore other ways. And I still suffer with it. It's a diabetic nerve pain in my feet that will keep me up literally all night. And it gets worse than others, but I've learned through diet, things that can make this kick in. And I've controlled it to a point where it's no longer ruining my life. It's just an inconvenience. I know I'm going to have a spell and it's going to be happening and it'll be over in a couple of nights and I'll be back then. Just having to learn to live with it because nobody in the medical profession seems to know what to do with it.
Well, you're right. It comes back to our diet. So I've changed my diet dramatically, excuse me. And,
drastically and dramatically. That's awesome. You just made up a new word.
Oh,
dramatically. Wow. I'm stealing it.
It's fitting.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then with the degeneration, see, what actually really started the injury going is I was closing a metal gate because every night, at the California Men's Colony, we have to close the metal gate to secure the corridors so officers can do their rounds. And that's what started. So my vertebrae had already been getting degenerated. And then what happened is it pinched a nerve, making the motion, and it felt like warm water was just running down my back.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't hurt at the time.
No,
but
it feels
from
like
then
something.
on, it was just
seems like something popped, and you just feel I know that feeling.
And that goes back to what you were talking about with your nerve. It doesn't have to be anything drastic to activate the nerves, and then they don't know how to shut it down. They were doing what they call ablations on me. So they would stick a needle in my neck, and they would put another electrode, and what it would do is it would literally burn the nerves. So it would start in my neck, and it would start burning down my shoulder until it got.
So they were trying to kill the nerve so you wouldn't feel it anymore.
Well, they kill the nerve so it'll grow back, hoping that'll repair it.
Oh,
because your nerves will repair. They can grow back. But the
Did
thing
not
is,
know that. Didn't know.
Like with your vertebrae is when it's pinching, it creates that point where the signals can't go through, and they have no way of locating that a lot of times. So right now I'm in Colorado. I moved from California, and initially they had to fly me back to California for a doctor's visit. Well, that influenced them to get a doctor here. So the doctor here takes me in, takes the x-rays. He says, okay, what we want to do is we want to do an epidural in strategic locations to isolate which nerves are giving you the most problems. California Workman's Comp won't even respond. So they contacted Colorado, contacted California. California said, okay, this is the documentation we need. So Colorado filled out the documentation, sent it back, no response. The Colorado office started calling the Colorado office started calling California, the adjuster's office. Won't respond, won't take the phone call. So I was supposed to get my first epidural in December. Well, it's now mid-January. They rescheduled it to next week. And I still don't have an approval or disapproval. And the Colorado doctors can't get in touch with the adjuster. So now they are dragging these out, not even doing a response. So next month, I have to fly from Colorado to Los Angeles for my AME appointment, agreed upon medical examiner, that my attorney was able to make. So I'll go and see the examiner. So they'll have to fly me from Colorado there and back, pay for the flight, all the transportation, the hotel, and whatever the treatment is, Workman's Comp will drag it out.
Who's paying for the hotel and the flight and all that?
Workman's Comp, state fund.
Do you have to pay for it and then send them the receipt and all that kind of stuff, or how does that work?
Well, they have a company that they go through that organizes all of it. Well, the funny thing is
a travel agency?
They do. They have a travel agency.
You're going to be flying United, Mr. Tucson, and we're going to be putting you up in the Hollywood Beverly Hotel.
Oh, if I got
enjoy your stay,
I would be ecstatic. The last flight. Okay, this is.
You don't get Motel 6. You're Motel 4 3/4.
Exactly. The last trip. Okay, so here it is we had been talking about the appointment for over 2 weeks for the last trip. And they said, well, we're trying to get approval. We're trying to get approval. We're trying to get this done. We're trying to get this done. 15 minutes before I had to leave to make the plane, I was told it was approved. So
dang.
here it is It's
So you
like
were
3
going off
o'clock
into the
in the
wild blue yonder,
afternoon.
not even knowing you were going to have an appointment once you got there.
Well, we knew
Interesting.
that we had the appointment. We just didn't know the transition.
Hmm.
So I don't know this for sure, but it would be probably a safe assumption to say they were dragging it out to let me know until the last minute, hoping I would miss the flight and everything. Well, the thing is they were supposed to have a car pick me up at my house and take me to the airport, which is about an hour away with traffic. If I would have waited for that car, I would have missed it. So I had to drive myself from my house to the airport. I
Again,
made
something
it
that they had arranged but didn't follow through. So yeah, you had to pay for your own parking and everything, right?
exactly, which I submitted a
Long
claim a
term, of
couple months ago and still haven't received the money. So
course. Good luck with that.
yeah, so it's amazing how inconvenient everything can be for
Right, and
them.
it's not by accident.
And
Um,
if I would have
it,
missed it, they would have said, "Well, he just didn't make the appointment, so
yeah.
it's not our
Well,
fault."
and since you missed an appointment, you obviously don't need us anymore. Boom, you're done. That's the crap they pull, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
I mean, I'll bet you know people probably who have had that happen to them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, well, you didn't make this one appointment. You obviously don't need this anymore, so
Well, yeah,
we
that's the
set
thing.
you free.
If they can make you to jump through hoops, and then they say, "Well, if you're jumping through these hoops, then obviously can you do it?" No, you're doing it out of desperation. You're not doing it out of willingness. You know, who in their right mind is? I mean, when I left with the clothes I had on. I grabbed a toothbrush and toothpaste, put that in my backpack, and that's what I left with.
It's a government. Let's explore workers' comp. First of all, politically correct, you can no longer call it workman's comp. It's workers' comp. Um, is it 100% government agency, or is it like PG&E? It's a private entity that's regulated by the government. What is workers' comp?
Everybody receives a state
Compensation.
paycheck.
Everybody gets it. It automatically comes out of your paycheck, yes.
Yeah.
And the business you're working for is paying into it as well.
Well,
And
absolutely.
in
But being a
California,
state employee,
what's that?
my attorney basically says if you're a state employee, you're screwed. If you're actually work for a private company, then they will actually, because they have to pay into the system. Well, California's state funded, so it comes out of their budget. So they say, well, if we're going to pay for this engineer employee, it's coming out of somewhere, so we have to take it out of our budget. So you're no longer, they're not taking care of their employee. What they're doing is they're taking care of their budget. But, everybody gets a paycheck. So my attorney's when he gets settled, it will come from California. The judge, paycheck from California. The attorneys on their side, paycheck from California. State fund, paycheck from California. Third party, independent party, state paycheck. Wouldn't it just be easier just to treat the person?
Just take care of business. Yes.
And not only that, the doctor has to be approved by state fund. So it's not like I can just go to any doctor. I mean, through your attorney, you can negotiate for your personal doctor if that's who you want, but it has to be negotiated. Most of the time, you go to doctors that will accept the insurance. And then on top of it, the doctors are only getting a negotiated rate, which means less than what they would normally receive. So
most of them don't deal with it or take it or mess with it. I've got stories about while I was on maneuvers, serving in the Army for the State Guard, which I'm still in. I'm still active duty. And it was a bad injury, and it had to be taken care of now. And I couldn't wait. So I went ahead and used what insurance I had, which is not much. And now the whole thing with workers' comp, reimbursing all of that and getting that all put together is so daunting. And I was never even given a case number by the state. I was never even given a case number. So I'm kind of dead in the water. I don't know what to do. And I've got these bills coming over. Well, your insurance didn't cover this. Your insurance didn't cover that. You owe us thousands of dollars. Well, who are you? What did you do? Well, I don't know. You got to call billing.
Yeah.
No, why don't you just explain to me what it is that you're claiming I owe you $1,400 for? What did you do? Were you standing in the back of the room observing while I was being operated on? What happened? It's been maddening, and I'm
Wow.
still in the middle of it. So you asking me to host this show for you is great because I can empathize now, not just sympathize. I can understand because
Oh,
I've
man.
not only been through it, but I'm going through it right now.
That's ridiculous.
Thank God I haven't been ruined and I didn't have a family, and this happened after my divorce, so I'm not having to worry about her and everything. Um, but these family dudes, like that guy last week, 4 kids,
Yeah.
his wife,
6 kids.
and oh, six, that's right, and losing their house and everything.
Yeah.
Awful. We got to
No,
get the
he's a
word
good guy. He was
I
doing
don't
his
know what
job.
we can, how do we go from here other than just getting the word out? What is the next step for Kirk?
Well,
You,
the
your
thing
man.
is with the politicians, I can understand them worried about the high settlements that they were paying out in the past. Okay, I understand that.
And there was a lot of fraud, a lot
A
of
lot of
fraud, and
fraud.
abuse, a lot of liars.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, for what's happening is the people that are actually getting injured and suffering are the ones that are paying for it. Because now the system is set up to where they can drag things out. My attorney basically told me, he says, even the workman's comp judge is just a mediator. Both parties have to agree. And if they don't agree, it just continues on. My case has gone on for 7 years. And we don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, they're going to hold me to going to a doctor every month for the rest of my life. So that's something I have to deal with or just quit. And for the most part, it's set up just to make you quit. Now, the
Yep.
politicians, they can basically make some changes to the system. This was all changed over Schwarzenegger, and it was bipartisan, so it was both sides. They weren't fighting for employee rights. They weren't fighting for fair treatment. They were fighting to save the government money, and that's what it's doing. So now there are these huge loopholes that the government is taking advantage of. We work, our employer is the state. So the state is basically saying, we're not taking care of our employees. Our employees are a burden to us. How many people would
Next.
really want to work for the state when, they get rid of you, they got another person to fill your shoes?
Yeah, because everybody's wanting a government job now, because that was the only thing that wasn't shutting down and firing people during the whole COVID shutdown. So more people than ever trying to get government jobs. And it's so funny that on the radio station where I work, I do an afternoon talk show out here in Northern California. The guy who was on before me quit because he got a state job. He got a job with the state. He left the business that he'd done all of his life, and he was like celebrating. Woohoo! I'm going to have a retirement. I'm actually going to have benefits. I'm going to be taken care of the rest of my life. That's the attitude. I won the lottery. I got a state job, county job, city job, federal. That's it. Name it. If it's a government gig, you're going to be in the money. And you've got government employees on unions, which is such a conflict of interest. How is that allowed? But it's just rampant, and you're not going to put that genie back in the bottle now. I don't know
And
how
the
you
union
do.
doesn't help. The union's not fighting for employees.
Oh,
They're
hell
just
no.
another
And
political
you were
arm.
in the union then. There's a correctional officers union, isn't there?
Well, I was the supervisor, so I was in the See, the supervisors aren't allowed to have a union, so we had an organization.
Okay.
So the organization tries to team up with other organizations for power. But they're not. It's just another political branch.
Yeah.
And then going back to your injury, were you state active duty?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're
Well,
going back to
no,
state
it was
again.
not. It was not considered state active duty at the time. I've been on ESAD, emergency state active duty.
Okay.
But when we're on base, and I'm part of Joint Training Command, so I'm actually one of the guys training or helping to train soldiers
Mm-hmm.
to be good soldiers,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a lot more to it, and I've got to be there. I've got to be in formation. I got to be marching. I got to be on maneuvers with the actual classes as
Right,
well.
but your benefits are paid through the state.
Yes.
So
Yeah. We're
basically, it
covered
is
by workers'
another part of the state,
Mm-hmm.
and they use the same rules, the
Right.
same regulations.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're under the state California Military Department.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to a friend of mine. We were fighting fires. So California Guard, Black Hawk helicopters, dropping water. He was a maintenance person to supply the maintenance for the helicopters while out on location. So they actually move us to the location close to the fires. He was walking through a field, dropped in a hole, and they would not cover him. While on state active duty, fighting fires, and he now has lost both of his legs. So it's the same story regardless if you're a state employee or state military, or they avoid. That's their game. They avoid and drag out. For me, I became homeless. A friend had to take me in. I was living in a car. I had my car with my cat and dog.
Kirk,
So
I never knew all this.
oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, see, what happened with me is, I had been dragging it out. My paychecks had been dropping. I had to give up my house because I wasn't getting a full paycheck. I was living out of the storage unit, going to a gym to shower before work. So I was even homeless while working.
I've been there.
Who do you go to for help? And then finally that's when the doctors did the MRI on my neck, because obviously I'm not sleeping in a bed at that point. But it just, it snowballs. It snowballs, and you're trying to do the right thing. You're trying to do your work. You're trying to make sure that other people don't have to pick up for you, because you have responsibilities, on top of
Did you have a family? Did you have a family through all that?
I was divorced at that point, but
Yeah.
so, the thing is even when you're injured, they hold you over for an additional 8-hour shift. You can't say, well, I'm injured, I can't work, or it's to the point where I'm in so much pain, I can't work. You can't do that. They say, well, you're just making excuses, or, and you're punished for it, so you go to work for your 8-hour shift. You have to be prepared to at least stay for another 8.
And then, like you said, you're already short-staffed anyway. And so now you got your fellow officers unhappy with you because they've been burdened with even more hours or duties or both.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're definitely
So you feel between a rock and a hard
place. You're the Charlie in the box, and nobody likes a Charlie in the box, right? Right?
Yeah,
That would be awful.
So I mean, you're literally between a rock and a hard place, and that's why I wanted to start this. I want people to be able to tell their stories, because it isn't until we start telling our stories that people start listening to what we're going through, or even acknowledging what we're going through. I was getting ready to promote to lieutenant. I had taken the test. I had passed the test. I was doing interviews.
It would have been a good retirement for you.
Well, yeah, that's what you're looking to do. Everybody
Right.
that's working in the system, we're trying to work 30 years.
Right.
That is the goal. That is why I was there in the department, is for retirement. I used to work in construction when I was young, and I got tired of the ups and downs, the crashes of the economy, in and out of jobs, even weather delays.
Rain,
So
yeah.
I'm looking at this like, oh, I worked 30 years, I get a retirement, you know? So that was my goal. I was halfway there, you know? So I would have been able to do another 30 years. I set up, I was going to have a military retirement, which I lost. I was going to have a CDC retirement, which I lost, you know, and then I was going to do, I was training to become an inspector, a home inspector, so I could do home inspections after I retired and possibly flip houses. Well, I can't do that, obviously, physically, you know. But yeah, I had 23 years in the military, and part of it was National Guard and Reserve, which doesn't give you full year points. So I had 23 years, but it doesn't qualify towards retirement. I just did a 6-year reenlistment, you know, prior to. So I was still
Were you
drilling.
ever regular service or always just in the Guard?
Oh, I did active duty.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
So you got VA, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
you still get VA, even though you just don't get full benefits.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was active Navy.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, got out. I was doing dive salvage, underwater recovery. So I pulled
Wow.
pulled 150 cars out of the California aqueduct, 35 feet underwater. And so
I'm a diver as well, but I'm a pleasure diver. I am certified, and that doesn't sound fun. That does not
well,
sound fun.
I mean, it's fun if you like zero visibility and
Right,
the
zero,
water
that's
moving.
very cold. Yes.
Yeah,
You had
swift
to
water.
wetsuit up every time, right?
What's that?
You had to wetsuit up every time.
Oh yeah, wetsuit, 35 pounds of weight on my waist, small tank, you know, streamlined because the California aqueduct's moving at 11,000 cubic meters a second. So it's like walking to a 60-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah, it's very, very fast.
So
Cars were winding up there because they were stolen for the most part.
stolen and insurance fraud. So
Oh,
what
mine
happens
was
is,
stolen. I don't know
well,
what happened to it.
I did a
Okay.
dive on 9/11. You know, we got called by CHP, and they said we got a vehicle in the water, and we suspect it could be terrorist. So on 9/11, I did a dive and recovered a insurance fraud vehicle, full-size conversion van. So,
Why did they suspect it was terrorist related?
well, 9/11, because the Twin Tower or the Twin Towers
So
were.
like the following year then you're thinking, or that
No, on
actual day in
9/11.
2001? In 2001.
Yes, on
Okay, I
9/11.
got you. I got you.
So there
So
were a lot of
so I mean, that just seems a little funny to me that they would automatically go to that because here we're having planes hijacked and crashed into buildings, but in California, well, they loaded up a van full of explosives and dumped it into to an
well,
aqueduct.
the thing is there's a lot of intelligence that comes out of. Well, you figure if
There wasn't a lot of intelligence in that call, I don't think, is my
well,
suggestion.
if you destroy the aqueduct, you shut off water to Southern California.
Okay, all right, all right.
So,
Might not be a bad thing.
uh,
I'm a Northern California, tried and true. Um, I I guess the question is now, where do you go for help? You mentioned the disabled American veterans before we went on the air. You were talking to me about it, suggested I contact them and ask, hey, can I get some help here? Where do I go? At
yes,
least a place to start, because I've actually contacted a couple of attorneys and they both went, oh, it's state? Oh, and you're military? No, not going to touch it.
yeah, they won't.
Seriously, literally said no.
Yeah, the disabled American veterans help me. They are set up specifically to help military with issues. So in your case, that would be a good option. Contact them. Just let them know what happened, and they can take it from there. But they have they're nonprofit, so they're not actually part of the government, which is an advantage. You know, So I encourage anybody to donate to DAV.
There's a
Because it
time
helps
that I
service
did.
members.
I was a regular monthly giver to DAV, and then this report came out about the abuse and the money not going where they said it was going, and these huge, admin people making huge money, and stuff not getting done like they were suggesting it was getting done. That was a big controversy, and that was in the '90s, and I was like, "Psst, I'm done."
Mm,
That's too bad because I thought they were doing good work and I supported it, and I was glad somebody was there doing something that to me no one else was touching.
yes.
So that was disappointing. But I just talked with somebody like you a couple of weeks ago who's high up military, retired, and he goes, "No, different, completely different. I mean, they got rid of the bad. Now everything they're doing is really good."
Yeah. The friend that I mentioned to you that lost both of his legs, I recommended them to him, and they have helped him get, because at first they were doing nothing for him, you know. And I mean, we're talking, he was on mission,
Right.
inside California, on fighting fires in support of,
California's very, very busy building high-speed bullet trains to nowhere that nobody wants to ride, and giving all the free healthcare and education and benefits to every illegal that comes over here and is guaranteed to vote Democrat.
Yes,
That's where their focus is. So
absolutely.
we who actually live here and have been here all our lives and work here and work for the state, or like in my respect, much of what I do is actually volunteer. I only get
Hmm.
paid when I get deployed.
Oh, wow.
Um, and now because of COVID and I refuse to get the jab, I cannot be deployed. And I will not be deployed
Yeah.
until further notice. The Department of Defense is, nobody is getting deployed unless you get that shot.
Yes.
So there's your one source of income gone.
Yes.
So it's good to know the DAV is a place to start. Anybody watching right now is like, well, this is all well and good to go talk about all the things that are wrong, but where do we go for help? What else, Kirk? Where do we go
Well,
for help?
that's the first step, and then the second step is to contact your councilman, state representative, local representative. You know, that's what Alvin's wife did. She contacted a congressman, and he
That was
actually started the
amazing.
motion.
Yes, that was an amazing turnaround, wasn't it?
Yes,
If you
absolutely.
haven't watched that interview, I think it'd be worth it to look it up on this channel here and look it up. It was the very first show with Alvin, right?
Yeah, and
AL.
he's a good guy. He was doing his job.
Mhm.
He even has a degree for criminal justice, so
Yeah.
he was most likely going to be moving up the ladder. So he, at the time, he was a sergeant, but I'm sure he would have promoted up. You know, but sadly, a lot of times the people that are put in the positions is more of a political position than it is a position of somebody with experience and the necessarily tools to do the job. So, but yeah, Congress, now that I'm in Colorado, I don't have a local congressman in California. So, but that's one thing, we could do on this channel is bring them on, actually, Rudy, the person that you're going to be doing
Rudy
a show
Rosselli,
with. Yes,
retired Army Major.
yes.
Yep.
So we can have him on, talk to him. Any of the politicians, doctors, attorneys, anybody that wants to voice their concerns about the system, because everybody is frustrated. The attorneys are frustrated. The doctors are frustrated. The medical
Attorneys are
personnel.
afraid to even touch it,
Yes.
apparently. Many
Well,
of them, my
it's bad
experience.
when your attorney says, "Well, sorry, there's nothing we can do because it's political." I'm not political. I'm just trying to get medical treatment. I don't care whose politics it is. You know, um, they need to be. We work for them, but they don't want to take care of us. But they're willing to take care of other people that haven't contributed anything to the state. You know, We're talking about people that have actually worked for the state and makes the state function, and provides services to everybody, but the people that are providing services for everybody, I mean, if you didn't have corrections, well, you can see what's happening in California. A lot of people have been released that shouldn't be released, and they've been reducing the numbers of staff inside the institutions, and they're trying to close the prisons. Well, there's a purpose, As custody, we're not convicting people. We're just doing our job and making sure the people that are convicted are
stay there,
protected, that the public is protected. It's not an environment that most people would work in, but there's a purpose for it. It's not like, oh yeah, we just want. No, you don't want more people inside the institutions, but the institutions have to function, and that's the problem. And most people that are working inside have no animosity towards anybody. And most people that are working in the institutions are service-oriented people to begin with. So most of them, if they weren't doing corrections, they would probably be doing law enforcement. They'd be EMTs. They'd be, working in medical. So there's a lot of things that they would be doing. Fire. We have a lot of guys that leave corrections and go to law enforcement, or they go into fire department, or they go into EMTs, or they're going to other service-related fields.
Yeah. Those are the sheepdogs.
Yes, sir.
Those are the sheepdogs. I want to encourage you to get a hold of Kirk if there's anything that you want to know through this website. How do we do that, Kirk?
Well, we're putting up the website. I just need a few contact information and,
an email address then maybe?
Yeah, email address. You can contact me at Kirk, KIRKT, at brokenworkcomp.com. I'm looking for people that are interested in possibly doing blogs even, for people to stay up on the workman's comp system. I'm looking for politicians. I'm looking for attorneys. I'm looking for anybody.
Yes. You know what, Kirk? As far as I'm concerned, a lot of these people that we've been talking about that are ignoring, denying, dragging feet, they're cockroaches. And you know what happens to cockroaches when you turn the light on them?
They run.
They scatter. And until the media starts shining some light on these cockroaches, they're just going to keep doing their dirty work behind the scenes and doing what they can to preserve their own fortunes.
Absolutely.
It's got to end, and the media has got to step up. This media has been letting the American people down for way too long now. Television, print, radio, all of it. Way too long. So thank you for that. Kirk T at brokenworkcomp.com, right? Thanks, buddy. Nice talking with you. And next week, I hope you can join us again for the show. I'm Charlie Simons. May God bless you and keep you.